In this lesson, we're going to get into building the interior lights of our scene. Alright, so now that we have our exterior lighting established and we kind of have an idea of what kind of color palette we're going to be working with, we can go in and start working with the interior lights of our building. Now, we've already placed some static meshes for our lights, and you can kind of see them glowing because of their emissive map and their material. But they aren't actually emitting any sort of light. So let's go ahead and add those in. So to add a light, we can always right-click and add actor and then use add point light. That's one way of doing it. Or what we can do is we can actually open up our content browser, go to actor classes, and this will give us a list of all the actors that we have available to us. Now we can go to lights, and here you can see that we have directional lights, point lights, skylights, and spotlights. So I'm going to go to point lights here, and you can see I have a dominant point light movable, and point light toggleable. So we have lots of different ones that we can choose from. Now we're just going to be sticking with the basics in this course. So just wanted to show you a different way of creating those. Now a shortcut for building lights, let's go ahead and build one over here, is to hold L on the keyboard and then left click. Okay, and that will create a light very quickly. Okay, so let's go ahead and position these where we want them to go. And again, remember you can adjust your scale, your draw scale on those if you want to make those bigger and easier to grab a hold of in your scene. Now, whenever you have a light selected, you can always scale them and adjust that fall off there. Now, with these lights, I want to make them kind of smaller and just kind of drop that down. Okay, now I want to try to stay consistent with the size of my lights, so I can always delete this one out and grab my move tool and hold down Alt and duplicate this light, and that's going to keep those parameters that I've added here. Okay, now this needs to go a little bit brighter here. That needs to kind of spread out a little bit more. Okay, just kind of adjust that. Now with this light, one other thing that I want to do is double click on it and go to my light color. Now outside we have kind of this blue color, and what we want to do is we want to kind of complement that. So whenever you go from an exterior scene to an interior scene, you don't want lights that are consistent in color. Okay, you want them to be a little bit different, add a little bit of contrast and interest to the levels. So what I can do is add in kind of a yellowish type of color, and that's going to be great for this type of light here because it's kind of an incandescent bulb. Okay, so it's just like a regular bulb, and it kind of puts off this yellow color. Now we don't want to go quite that yellow. We just want kind of a hint. So I'm just going to come through here and kind of play with those colors. And this looks pretty good, kind of giving us this cream color. Let's hit OK on that. And then now it's going to be really easy for me to come in with my move tool, just hitting spacebar to toggle that, and hold down Alt, left click and drag on that move tool, and I can just take this light and duplicate it. Now a couple of things that you want to pay attention to whenever you are working with your lights. Sometimes you may have a light source, kind of like a lantern or something like that, that could be casting a shadow. We don't want to put our light sources inside because that creates something kind of odd, but we do want to get kind of far enough away to where the light is going to show up, but we want to make sure that our lights are positioned in such a way that it just doesn't look odd. This is where the light source is supposed to be, and look at where the shadow is. Okay, so we don't want things like that. So we want to try to stay consistent as possible. Now we can always select this object, and let's say that it's not, we don't like the shadow or something like that. We could always select this object here and bring it up in our properties, and I can come in here to, I believe it's my rendering, and actually it might be, let's see, where is it? We can come in and we can tell it that it cannot cast shadows. And it's going to be under lighting here. So here we have cast shadows. We can turn that off, and we can tell it to not cast a dynamic shadow or a static shadow. Okay, and then we no longer have that issue. So whichever way you want to go about it, that's totally up to you. So whenever you select a light, though, you'll notice that that shadow comes back, and that's because it's just kind of giving us a dynamic real-time look to it. Okay, so whenever we bake this out and we start to work with this, notice how whenever I select this light, this one's no longer casting a shadow. Okay, so that's totally up to you on what you want to do. I'm okay with it giving us a shadow, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave it just the way it is. Let's go ahead and build out the rest of our lights that are in our scene here. So I'm going to hold down Alt, I'm going to bring that over here and add that right in here. Okay, I have a light that's right there. Hold down Alt, drag this over. Now notice this one is inside of our mesh, and we don't want that. We just want right outside, like so. Now pushing it right up against it, notice how it gets that shadow much larger on the object. Pull it out a little bit away from it. Okay, nothing wrong with that. Now this is going to produce a little bit of light here as well because we have a couple of bulbs, but we're going to drag the radius down and make that just barely cast any shadow really. So let's hold our space bar down, let's press that a couple of times, and let's just give this a little glow. Okay, and then let's go ahead and grab this one, my move tool, and I'm going to position this right over here. And if you want to lower the amount of light that this gives off on some of these, that's totally fine. Because with lighting, you don't have to be absolutely accurate. What you're looking for is a level that is interesting to look at. Okay, so you want something that's really nice and pretty, and if the lighting needs to be changed to a different color, if it needs to be brought down to where it's a little bit different than the other lights, that's totally fine. Okay, so like this one, I'm just going to bring its value down a little bit. Okay, just kind of give a little bit of a glow there. So we also have this light, and I'm going to hold that down. I'm going to drag this toward me and my camera. And just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about here, I'm just going to take this scale down a little bit. Just barely make that do much to the scene there. Okay, you do the same thing with this one. Okay, just kind of bring that down a little bit. It's totally up to you there. Now we do have some lights here on the outside, but I just don't feel like they're going to produce all that much. Well, to be honest, let's go ahead and add those lights in. Let's go ahead and just kind of make them kind of a blue color. And I'm just going to add one light. Let's say that the other one is out. And I'm going to change its color. Kind of a lighter blue. And then I'm also going to drag that fall off, drop that down a little bit. Okay, just to kind of give a little bit of light there. Let's grab my move tool. I'm going to move this back some. Okay. Now you can always adjust the brightness on these as well. So if you want to make that a little bit brighter, you can do so, or a little bit less bright. Okay, and then adjust your fall off as needed. Okay, and then clicked on that there. Let's do 0.75. Let's close this. Grab that scale tool. I'm going to adjust that fall off a little bit. Okay, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just put it on the other one as well. Because it has an emissive texture on it, it wouldn't make much sense for that light to be there if it didn't produce some sort of light. Okay, now it's going to be kind of drowned out by the rest of the environment lighting, but you can kind of see that a little bit better. Alright, so there is our level lit up. Okay, and you want to place these on any other lights that you have in your scene. If you've got exterior lights or anything like that, by all means go ahead and do so. Now one last thing before I end really quickly is the skybox is a static mesh, so you need to remember that. Let's go ahead and double click on it, and let's make sure that the lighting is turned off on it so it doesn't cast any shadows or anything like that. So we're just going to make sure that those are off. Okay, we're going to close this, and then I'm going to build all and let that go through its process. And in our next lesson, I'm going to start going into working with the post-processing effects. So just to kind of build on our lighting. So I'll see you then.